Alright, so you're probably wondering what the heck I was just doing. I'm actually going to start making my own intake manifold for this VR6 because I have just ordered another one, and here it is. So this is the one that I had just ordered. This thing is actually interfering with the radiator, well, the throttle body part right here that bolts to the throttle body is actually interfering with the radiator. What is this, the thermostat housing? That thing is touching right there, which means we can't bolt it down properly. Essentially, this thing would have to move and be extended out, which I did order a piece, the throttle body. So this is the big boy now. This is one from a 2J, or it's for a 2J, 1J setup. This is a 90mm throttle body, eBay special. eBay special. What's going on? Where is, I must have put it in storage already. It's not in storage, where'd it go? Ain't no way. That thing done ran off on me. Oh, there it is. So previously, we had somebody weld this thing up. This part is what you saw in the car, the new one. And then we had this half piece welded up to match that piece. As you know, the VR6 comes in 2-piece intake. So this piece essentially would go bolt up to this piece and kind of swing around and go over the valve cover. The issue was this thing was a little bit too long in the first place. We knew it was going to interfere, so we had someone weld this up and able to mate this piece to this piece, but when they welded it, it warped. Went to go get it flattened, and the person who was going to go even it out was like, this thing is going to leak no matter what you do, should start over. So that's what we're doing. This thing essentially is kind of useless in a way, so what I'm going to do is just practice on it and make my own intake. So I got the 3-inch pipe right there. I got some aluminum flat bar 1/8, and I have this piece. Now the piece that I had ordered is the intermediate piece between this and this. There are definitely two different sizes, so I need something in between it. Need a reduction or expansion. Usually they call it a reduction. So it's gonna go from 90 down to just 3 inches again. It's like 80 or something like that. I don't remember. So this is basically 3.5 inch going down to 3 inch. And that piece is actually gonna extend this forward. It's gonna extend this forward like so. And that's gonna allow this thing to clear this pipe. And then once I do that, I have to make the decision on whether I'm gonna use the one that I make or use the one that's in the car, the one that we ordered. I gotta get cranking on this because that intermediate piece that's gonna go here, it should be here tomorrow or the day after. So I gotta get cranking on this thing, clean it up, heat it up, weld it up. And obviously I have to punch some holes. Because this thing has so many dips, peaks, and valleys and all that, I'm gonna use this as the 1/8 2-inch wide bar as the intermediate. I'm gonna have to end up making more of a template, a better template. I just use this temporarily just to kind of get the length and figure out where I'd want it to be. And that seems about right. It's about 17, not about, it is 17 inches long. That's exactly where I need it. I'm gonna use that to cut this thing. I'm gonna cut it right there. I use that to mark these lines. I'm gonna cut the lines off here. I gotta be careful because I don't want to actually cut into the runner. If I cut on an angle like this, I'm gonna end up cutting into the runner itself, and then this thing is gonna be useless. So I have to essentially cut it on an angle like that. Yeah, this is gonna be fun. But I'm doing it by hand. I gotta keep a keen eye when I'm doing this thing. Alright, so I've got this intercooler piping, charge piping that I have to put a bead on because I don't have a bead roller. And also I don't want to use the old school crimping technique. I'm gonna weld a bead on this thing. Alright, just finished putting some little tacks and welds on this thing. They're not the best and they're not beautiful, but it's gonna get the job done. I ended up having to kind of fill that area in right there, like right here, because I kind of burned it back like worse than what this little edge is. Had to bring that thing back, just fill it up, and I'm gonna let it cool down and then pop it onto the car. As you've seen, I've punched out essentially the holes for this template. I got all the extra biscuits here. What I'm gonna do, because I know that the inner diameter of this tube right here is... Can you quiet on that? I know that this tube right here is 1.5 inches. I'm using it as a means of getting this hole punch centered. Then I'm just gonna have to pick closer size. So this is a 3/8, bigger than a 3/8, smaller than a half. We're just trying to find something that actually fits in here pretty snug. Too small. Alright, we're gonna have to use a somewhat newer set. So this is one that's pretty snug, doesn't really wiggle around in there. And it's a 29/64. Not like that matters to you. So now what I'm gonna do is just center it in the hole. It's centered. Give it a light tap. These are some like run-of-the-mill drill bits. So now each of these have a dimple or punch mark for where we got to drill. I'm gonna go up to the 1.75" drill, because what I'm planning on doing is, instead of making it the same size as these holes, I'm actually gonna make them just a little bit wider, so that when I go in, I have a space where I could actually fill in the material right around the throttle bodies or these runners, so that I could fill these in around the edge, and we'll have a more stable seal. So I'm gonna go over the edge here, and also do on the inside. They won't be able to leak from in here, and I'll go along the outer bead, put some structure back into the piece. So I was using the new to me drill press, and then sure enough, boom, 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 the chuck slipped off. This thing is a press fit. When you put this on, you basically got to hammer it up on there. And what I'm gonna do next is just put a little heat to it. I already took the drill bit side out. I'm gonna put a little heat to it, and then just tap it on this side, get some heat, tap it here, and pop it on back up there. So as you see the plate here that I've made, holes are punched out nicely. Oh, it's off a little bit right there, but pretty darn good for just some tape and some paper and my eyes. All right, next we gotta get this thing cleaned up, all this oil out, all the gunk out of here, get all these shavings off the back. Got this thing tacked up. I'm a little nervous of those edges right there because they're very thin. You see this one already jumped out on me. They tacked up good. This is with no filler. It just did their thing. I think I'm gonna use the 3/32 tungsten, fill in that space. I was gonna use the 1/8, but I think the 1/8 might be a little too much. So I'm gonna just fill it in with the 3/32 and get this thing sealed up from the inside. So this is where I am with the welds on the intake plenum. This one's kind of gunky, but again, I'm welding like, I wouldn't say the best aluminum, better than cast. So I'm about to finish up the other halves, blend those in. This is why I'm even attempting to make this manifold, because as you see here, you see the angle and the space that it has for this piece for the thermostat housing. When this thing is on, this corner actually hits right there because it drops in like so. But this one puts it on an angle, kind of tilts it up and away from the housing. Then that way I could pop this guy on at the end. And I thought that the piece should have been here today. The adapter piece that goes with essentially hair and hair, I would have had to cut it. So this is 3 inch, this is 3.5. Probably just gonna end up putting the 3.5 between this and this piece. If this piece was here today, then I would have just lobbed this piece off, angle it how I needed it to, and then just put everything back on. But I got a couple days. Instead of just waiting, I'm just gonna put a little energy to practicing to get better, to get a little bit more proficient with my welds, learning how these metals react with each other when I'm welding them. Yeah, just trying to create something for myself. Who knows, if this turns out pretty good and that adapter piece doesn't come in sooner, when I get this thing done, I may just be using, like I said, I may just be using this with this piece versus that piece. That piece we kind of got time. So maybe we may be able to return it or recoup a couple dollars. Let me pull this thing off. Let's hop over to the welding table and get that piece ran in, and try to figure out what we're gonna do with the plenum itself. Next, I'm just gonna weld the seams in, run them in, fill in these little pockets. We know that they're sealed internally. Gonna go over the edge, put a little bit of structure back into this thing, flip it on the other side, get underneath. It's pretty hot right now, that's why I'm not trying to touch it. That's the next move. Let's blend these edges in so we can have some place to weld to.
Thank you so much for watching my video today, and please stay tuned because we got some fire content coming, and I'm excited for it, so I know you will be. Please, while you're here, like, share, subscribe, and call me crazy, but comment really cool.